Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. It's Ali Coram and Justin Nielsen here with a look at the action in today's session, where we saw an impressive intraday comeback after a weak open, Justin.
Yeah, I mean that's what we like to see, right? A weak start and strong open, and that's what we saw on Thursday too. So we'll see if we can keep this keep this trend alive. But we will take a look at a few stocks after we look at the markets, including Five Below, Crocs, and
Mhm.
Rambus.
Yeah, a weak start and a strong finish indeed for the major indexes. The Nasdaq almost turned positive by the end of the day, but still closing with a fractional decline. We did have the Dow up 0.3% and the S&P 500 up 0.1%. The Russell 2000 was the leader today, as there was a bit of relief action in regional banks with KRE up nicely. But here's a look at the Nasdaq. You can see the chart where we closed nicely off lows. And like you said, it was similar to what we saw last Thursday.
Yeah, so a couple areas that we're kind of looking at right now. I mean, certainly there's that 21-day moving average line, which is the green line. We didn't even come down to that, so it's kind of nice that we're staying above that line. We're trending above it, and I was also looking at this March 6th high. So that's right there at like around 11,827. And what's interesting is if you draw a line straight across from there, if you go to March 29th, which was the follow through day, that's also right around the low of that day. So I think this is an area that I'd really like to see the index stay above. Now, one thing I have to caution people is that as much as the indexes aren't showing that much, destruction or really any problems at all, there was a lot of destruction in individual stocks last week. And that was
Yes.
one of the things that made us feel a little bit uncomfortable, led to some selling because look, I don't care what's happening in the indexes. If my individual stocks are
Right.
triggering sell signals, I'm going to
Gotta
have to,
act.
yeah, I'm going to have to act. So that is something that's not really being shown with the indexes. And what's actually interesting today is that the mega caps kind of masked some of the weakness that was happening last week. Well, today
They
uh,
were the cause
the,
of the
yeah,
weakness.
they were the cause of the weakness. The indexes were the market was actually a little bit stronger than the indexes showed, especially the Nasdaq. I mean, if you look at
Mhm.
just what happened with the equal weighted, you can see that that was up a decent amount. So as
Yeah.
much as the Nasdaq Composite wasn't able to get into positive territory, that equal weighted was. RSP was outperforming the S&P 500. RSP, of course, being the equal weighted of the S&P 500. And I mean, if you look at some of the Microsoft, Meta, and Apple and Google, kind of your FANG stocks, your big mega caps, those were the ones that were struggling the most, down 1-2%,
Mhm.
and didn't have quite the comeback that the
Right.
indexes did.
Exactly. Some others, though, like Nvidia, AMD, reversing higher today.
Chips,
So
different story.
yeah, different story with the chips.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's briefly look at the Dow and the Russell 2000 before we move on. So here's is your DJIA. Also, we have IWM tracking the Russell 2000 trying to bounce here. But it seems like outside of the Russell 2000, so for the Nasdaq, the S&P 500, and the Dow, Justin, we are seeing a little bit of a pullback, maybe some sort of handle type action. If we're seeing a different story on the index level and the individual stock level, then what index level setup should we be looking for? I mean, it seems like maybe with a couple more days, either we have the 21-day line catch up to the Nasdaq or a pullback down to that level, or for the S&P 500. I mean, this is looking like the makings of a nice handle here too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, going back to the NASDAQ, what was interesting is last week we really kind of came right up to those old February 2nd highs, right around 12,269, and that's where we stopped. So it's not too bad that we took a pause there, because a lot of times if you can build a platform right underneath there, it can give you something to launch off of. And so that's not necessarily a bad thing. Again, this really comes down to, can the individual stocks
Mhm.
hold up, provide us with setups, and give us something to act upon.
Absolutely. And let's take a look at 0 TNX. This is the 10-year treasury yield. So coming up a bit, it would be nice to see maybe the volatility here go down a little bit. if we can just see yields in some sort of an expected range, that might be a good thing. But for now, it seems like stocks liked the fact that we didn't see more bleeding with the yields.
Yes, and it does feel like things are a little bit all over the place right now, right? It seems like money is really trying to move to all these different areas. I mean, defensive was getting a little bit, of love last week,
Right.
and it was kind of pulling away from there. So it does seem like there's a little bit of a searching, a little bit of an uncertainty. People aren't quite sure where to put their money. So I think some of that is going to have to settle down. And look, we are still dealing with a Fed. What's going to happen? Are we one more?
Right.
Are we at the end of this? Are we at the end of this tightening? But there's also the recession fears. So I mean, there's a lot that the market's
It's
going
a
to have to
balancing act.
digest. Yeah,
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, it really does though come down to stocks. Can they set up? Look, we've been in kind of this rough, bear market for uh, quite a while now. I mean, it
Hmm.
really started in February of 2021. And
Yeah,
so
it's more than
at
two
a certain point,
years.
yeah, at a certain point, things are going to start turning. And, it can be a slow process. We might be in a trading range for a little while.
Right.
That's one of the things we were talking about for quite a while here on IBD Live. But um, eventually, this will provide more setups, and so that's why it's so important for you to have the watch list ready. Even if you're not putting a lot of money to work at once, having those watch lists ready, and doing some pilot positions, because that'll keep you prepared for when the market does turn.
Well said, Justin. And you mentioned the strength in chip stocks today. So here's a look at SMH bucking the weakness and outpacing the broad market, up 1.5% today.
Yeah, and we'll talk about some of the individual stocks in there, but certainly, as you mentioned, both Nvidia and AMD, the big mega caps in the chip space, those were doing well. We had some Micron news that was helping that stock out. So a lot of good action, and I like that we kind of got support here right there at 250, and it did have what you could call a breakout, but you know it kind of faltered along that area, but it never really failed. So
Right.
it's nice that it's holding that 250 area.
Hmm. And the 21-day line. And let's also take a look at XLI. So this is the industrial sector ETF. It took a big hit last week, but bounced today.
Yeah. So this was the top performing uh,
Sector.
sector fund. So of the 11 sector funds of the S&P 500, XLI was the top performing. XLE was up there as well. Oh, actually, you know what? Maybe. Yeah. Okay. So no, it was XLI. XLE was up there as well. So still, some of that
Mhm.
oil and gas is still showing some strength. But remember, XLE is dominated by both ExxonMobil and Chevron. Those
Absolutely.
two account for 40%. So again, it's always good to know what's really driving these moves. So for the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq, again, both of those are market cap weighted indexes. So recognizing when the mega caps are
Right.
holding a big weight there, either to the plus side or the negative side, as it happened today, it's important to kind of recognize what's going on.
Yeah, and that's why it's especially helpful to take a look at those equal weighted
Yes.
ETFs for the different indices, and to look at what the sectors are doing. So we got that covered. We're all over it.
Slice and dice it in a number of different ways, and that just really kind of gets you clarity on what's actually happening under the surface.
Yes. Well, let's go further under the surface and take a look at some individual names here. Starting with Five Below, FIVE, up 4.7% today in strong volume on this breakout here, Justin. We got an RS line blue dot and a pretty decisive move above the 212 level.
Yeah, so this was a nice little flat base that got formed here. You can see that it just really, resisted giving up any ground whatsoever. So only a depth of 11% for this base. But even look at just the last week's action here. It came down last week, but it just kept on not really coming down that much. And even on Thursday, while it came down, it finished strong. And look at the volume today. I will say one problem that I've had in looking at this market is, man, there's been a lot of setups that have looked interesting, but just no volume behind them whatsoever. That was one of the things that kind of bothered me about a lot of the chips I was looking at today.
Hmm.
But there was volume here in Five Below. This was also our stock of the day. Kit Norton did a nice job of writing this one up. So if you want to know a little bit more about what's going on with this store, what is it that's attracting the tweens to it?
Yeah.
Well, actually, I shouldn't say just tweens because our chief content officer mentioned that he actually likes going to the store himself, and he's well beyond a tween.
Yeah. Kid
So
at heart,
yeah,
maybe,
there we go.
but
But yeah,
some
as
other
you
things
mentioned,
there
that
too.
relative strength line,
Yeah.
very,
Look at
very
that.
strong looking. And I mean, if you look at this on the weekly chart, I mean, it's almost like it's getting this big, long base that it's coming
Right.
up to. So it'll be interesting to see if this one can still power higher. But it's nice to see that this
Mhm.
latest base is really tightened up. Only gave up 11%. For the flat base, and yeah, we'll see if this
Right.
can continue higher.
Yeah, definitely looks like it's at a key level right now. And we covered it on IBD Live this morning as it
Absolutely.
was making a move. And we
Hmm.
also want to take a look at Crocs, CROX, also in the retail theme, slightly different group here. Up 5% today as it rebounds off of these converging moving averages. Look at all that. They are all just
Yeah.
stacked right there. But Justin, where's the volume?
Yeah, so this was kind of the example here of one. Volume wasn't too bad. I definitely saw worse out there. I saw a lot of stocks that it was like negative 50%. So half. That means it was half its average volume. So negative 25% isn't great, but it's not as bad as I saw elsewhere. I do like the support that it got at the 50-day moving average line, and as you mentioned, all of those moving average lines getting stacked
Mhm.
there. Another one that really kind of seemed to tighten up lately. It's just not giving up much ground. We did put this on Swing Trader. Again, we put it on early. We were hoping for some more volume to come in later on, but that just never really materialized.
Mm,
But that doesn't mean we can't still make some money off of it, right?
yeah,
So as long as it doesn't trigger any sell signals, we can continue to hold this, and we've already got a nice gain on it from our
cushion.
entry this morning.
Absolutely. Nice one there. And I guess the next thing to watch out for on the upside is this 131 area. It's bumped its head there a couple of times. So could be a key test for this stock. Would love to see it just blast through there. I mean, we have group 13. It's a strong group. We've got the
Yeah.
strong fundamentals. We've got a nice prior uptrend. So hopefully this move can continue for Crocs.
Yeah, so I think that's exactly the area that you want to be watching. That 131. It's not just once that it's hit its head there, right? So you want to see it get through there, and hopefully with some volume behind it.
Yes. Yeah, that would be great to see a follow-up to today's action with some gusto. Okay, let's round things out with a follow-up on a chip stock we've been watching, and that is Rambus, RMBS. So taking a look here, we had a recent breakout that
Mhm.
looked pretty compelling and a pullback to the top of the buy zone. It's now bouncing yet again here, Justin.
Yeah, so for as much as we've been kind of getting down on breakouts, right? Because there have been a lot of those breakout fake outs. This is one that worked. It
Yeah.
had a nice breakout. Again, a very, very tight action, holding above that 50-day moving average line. We saw the breakout, had some gains, really didn't give up that much ground. I mean, in this case, you see that like that. What is it, a pink line or a magenta line?
Mhm.
That's the 10-day moving average line. That's a really short-term moving average line, and Rambus was able to hold above that. It really just didn't give up much ground. And, it kind of started at the lows today, but really came on strong, as did a lot of the chips. So this was this is something that just again looks interesting. For leaderboard, we actually already had this on the leaders list. It started as a quarter position, so this seemed like an opportunity for us to add to it. And so now it's a half position, and that's ideally what you want to see. You want to get some progress, add to it a little bit. And then if you can get these stocks trending,
Right.
then you can put more money into the stocks that are working. The problem that we've had lately is that stocks just haven't been trending for that long. There's been that sector rotation, or they're coming along. Everything's looking fine, and then it feels like they just rip the rug out from underneath you. So if we can kind of change that story and
Right.
have things trend a little bit better. Rambus is one that could be among the chips that is benefiting from all of the stuff that's happening here, whether it's
Mhm.
AI, data centers. That Rambus has its fingers in a lot of this stuff.
Yes, definitely has that leadership potential and strong price action as of late. And some traders out there may be taking issue with the red we're seeing in the two most recent quarters for earnings. But if you look ahead, looks like brighter skies are seen here for the annual earnings estimates.
Yeah. So this is one of the things that's going to be a little bit tricky with this earnings season that's going to be coming upon us. Is we're going to start seeing some of these estimates. What's really going to happen here? Because right now
Mhm.
the 2023 estimates. I mean, we're seeing some pretty ugly numbers for a lot of stocks out there. Rambus is looking pretty strong. So is this kind of some one-offs that we saw in this
Right.
latest couple quarters?
Mhm. We'll have to see. It'll be interesting. Also, loving this weekly volume profile here, by the way,
Yes,
for
I mean when
Rambus.
you see that many blue spikes, that's got to tell you, hey, this is something that is getting the attention of mutual funds, the big institutional investors. It's attracting
Mhm.
money, and so yeah, I gotta agree with you that those blue spikes are something I think that's worth getting excited about. And also, you can take a look at that up down volume ratio.
Mhm.
1.1 is not too shabby,
Not
and
too
that's something you
shabby.
could easily see increasing, um, even higher.
Wonderful, Justin. Thank you so much. And thanks everyone for tuning in. That is it for today's show, but we will continue our coverage on investors.com. So make sure you follow along for updates and join us tomorrow morning for IBD Live. Investors.com/IBD Live for all the details on that. David Ryan makes his weekly appearance. We'll see you there. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll be back tomorrow.